Hello, I'm Neil Whelan and welcome to the Wesleyan Podcast. In this episode, brought to you by Wesleyan Financial Services, Monica Pacult talks to Regional Manager Glen Roberts about the kinds of things teachers and education leaders need to know before the tax year end. They'll be taking a close look at how you can make the most out of any tax allowances, in particular around ISA savings and pensions. As always, this is your reminder that the podcast is for information only and doesn't constitute financial advice. But if you do need to talk to someone about your finances, I'll be back later to tell you how to contact us. But for now, I'll hand you over to Glen. And first up, Monica.
Today we're joined by Regional Manager Glen Roberts from Wesleyan Financial Services. Hi Glen and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Of course, I've worked in financial advice for over 25 years, the last 5 years at Wesleyan, and I lead a team of 13 financial planners in the Midlands who focus on helping customers in the education profession take the right action towards improving their financial futures.
Excellent. Well, we're here today to discuss how teachers and senior education leaders can make the most out of any tax saving allowances. So you're obviously a good person to talk to for that. Most tax allowances and reliefs run from April to April and can't be carried over into the new tax year. So this really means that if you don't use them, you lose them. So could you just remind us and give us a quick recap of what these allowances are, Glen?
Yeah, so there are a number of allowances. What I'll do is I'll focus on pension allowances and ISA allowances. So the simplest is the ISA allowance. Essentially, if you don't contribute into an ISA in a tax year, you cannot go back and use that year's allowance later, so it is lost. The maximum you can contribute each tax year to an ISA is £20,000. It's slightly different with pensions, and there's more complexity here, which is why it's always a good idea to have professional advice in this space. Due to the tax relief received on pensions, the government limits how much you're allowed to contribute to them. Indeed, the annual cost to the government is over £200 billion, which is received by individuals into their pensions. The annual input amount should not exceed £60,000 or your annual income in any tax year. It's important, however, to note that the contributions to the teacher's pension scheme paid from your salary is not the same as the pension input figure. If you're wishing to make significant pension contributions, you should seek professional help to calculate the figure correctly and avoid tax penalties.
Right, that does all sound quite complex. So would you say both of those areas are significant to teachers in particular, Glen?
So I think they're important for everyone, but actually equally important to teachers, and particularly those in the senior leadership positions.
Okay, and why is that?
So if I start with pensions, there are huge advantages to be aware of. So firstly, I mentioned the tax relief. So for higher rate taxpayers, a contribution of £10,000 would mean you actually paid £8,000 to achieve this, and you're able to notify HMRC and get a further £2,000 of tax relief via your tax return. So put simply, a £10,000 contribution costs you £6,000. Of course, you can also contribute monthly, so £1,000 per month ultimately becomes a cost of £600 per month. The fund grows tax-free, and 25% of the fund in payment is tax-free, although you're currently only able to access it at age 55, which rises to age 57 from April 2028.
Okay, well, thank you, Glen. That's very insightful. Do you think that teachers and education leaders in general can benefit from financial advice? Do you think it's a good idea?
Absolutely, and I'll give you a really pertinent example of that. So you may have heard of the term a 60% tax trap.
Yes.
This refers to those lucky enough to have a taxable income of over £100,000 in a year. If you're in this position, your personal tax allowance is reduced by £1 for every £2 you earn above this limit. So simply put, if you earn £110,000 of taxable income per year, you will lose £5,000 of your personal allowance, i.e. your income starts to be taxed at the basic rate sooner. So in this example, the actual loss of income due to this increase in tax would be £1,000. Now, in that scenario, if an individual contributed £10,000 gross into a pension, that would mean their taxable income drops to £100,000, so they get the £1,000 back and also benefit from the £4,000 in tax relief, which is £2,000 immediately and £2,000 for the tax return.
Thank you, Glenn. No, those are really, really useful examples. And that sort of refers to those in senior education leadership positions. But what about the average classroom teacher? How would they benefit from financial advice?
So having a conversation with a professional financial advisor would mean they would ask you questions to understand your situation in the round, and be able to help you establish your goals for the future. For instance, when you plan to retire and what standard of lifestyle you were looking for, and make sure we can project your anticipated income and allow you to plan for the retirement that you want and that you deserve, rather than having to modify your lifestyle at retirement to suit the income that you're receiving already.
Thank you, Glenn. That's all been really insightful. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, but thanks so much for coming onto the podcast, and we hope to have you back on again soon.
No problem, it's a pleasure.
And that's our show for this week. Thank you to Monica and Glenn. If you are looking for expert financial advice, go to wesleyan.co.uk, where you can book an appointment with one of our specialist financial advisors. Charges may apply, but we won't charge you until you've agreed the services you require and the associated costs. Find out more at wesleyan.co.uk/charges. If you'd like to learn more about Wesleyan more generally, you can find us on the website formerly known as Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you found the podcast useful, you can like and subscribe to us on all the usual platforms, as well as find us on YouTube, where there's a whole library of videos covering a wide range of financial planning topics. But that's it for now. So until next time, thanks for listening.